Greetings, YouTube. George Takei is trying to bring attention to the fact that Japanese Americans were in prison during World War II, and that particular chapter of our history seems to be missing, let's say, from your average history book. And it's important that we don't forget that people who were American citizens, who had done nothing wrong, who committed no crime, were not suspected of a crime, were rounded up, dragged from their homes, their businesses, and placed in imprisonment during World War II. As an interesting aside, the program that the United States used was actually a model built off of what Canada had used. And most people seem to think of Canada as a more egalitarian and liberal society than we have here in America, and for the most part, they would be correct. In this particular instance, Canada was the one that did this program first. We learned from them. So it's a blight pretty much upon the entire North American continent. These people did nothing. They just had the temerity to be Japanese Americans during World War II. And this program was kicked in after Pearl Harbor. Some people have said, well, it's done to protect them, so, they won't be harmed by angry Americans. And yet we didn't lock up German and Italian Americans in the same numbers that we did Japanese. I believe that quite a few of the Germans and Italians that were rounded up were not American citizens. But we rounded up every Japanese person we could lay our hands on, and threw them into camps. We imprisoned them. Don't use the euphemism internment camp. They were concentration camps. Plain and simple. We, in fact, treated the Nazi prisoners of war better than we treated the Japanese Americans in their particular imprisonment. There was even a Nazi prisoner of war camp here in my state of New Hampshire, in Stark, New Hampshire. I read a book about it once. And for the most part, they received better treatment than the Japanese Americans did, which is just stunning. And we need to remember this, as George Takei points out. We can't forget this. We need to spread the word. We need to put this into our history books. U.S. history in American schools is just shy of pure propaganda. And it needs to change. We need to be teaching actual history. It would help us, for the most part, for Americans to understand why there are peoples and nations in the world that don't like us. Maybe if we had an idea of what we have done as a nation, we might have a better understanding of that. And it's good to know that we were the bad guys occasionally, well, frequently, and why we were, and what were the causes of our actions. Just or unjust, right or wrong. There were reasons that these things were done. We need to dissect those reasons so we have a better grasp of what we have done, so we know where we're going. Because if we don't know our own history, we will repeat it. Particularly in an era where there are politicians who are more than willing to just paint entire peoples and religions and social groups with broad paintbrushes and speak about interring them in camps, imprisoning them. So it's important that we know our own history. So along with George Takei, one of the great gifts to our nation, I repeat his words. This place is important, and we need to remember. This place matters. This history matters. These events matter. We need to know where we've been so we know where we are and where we're going.